you're becoming a part of a community of other like-minded people that want to see you do well. And, you want them to do well because that makes everybody more valuable. Rising tides raise all boats. So I just want to make sure people understand that it's kind of the best of both worlds in my view, Tim. Like, it's not corporate America. You don't have a boss, but you're in business for yourself and not by yourself. You're not on this island. You've got others to turn to and learn from. And there's a ton of value in that for a new business owner.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today, we have a guest joining us from one of our franchise partners. Actually, they have several brands underneath their umbrella. Great brands, super unsexy home service things. You guys know I love those. But we're also going to talk about some of the ways in which this brand has been evolving behind the scenes, ways to hear and understand what's going on with their franchise owners and help them continue to grow and succeed even more than they originally thought possible. So excited to talk to this brand that is coming up next, right after we take a quick peek at who we are at FranCoach. FranCoach is the premier franchise consulting firm. Our number one goal is to properly educate you on franchise ownership to determine if you should own one. And if so, we're going to help you find your absolute best fit. Our educational approach ensures we focus on the client's best interest. We are not here to sell you a franchise. In fact, we don't sell anything. Finding the best franchise own is an incredibly personalized and individualized process that can only work with a team of experts focused on what is truly most important. That's you. FranCoach, our services are always 100% free to use, so reach out to our team. Click the QR code or find us at francoach.net. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, folks, we are back on the Franchising 101 podcast, and our guest joining us from lovely Nebraska is the Vice President of Franchise Development for Happinest Brands, Mr. Eric Martin. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Tim, thank you for having me. It is a lovely, balmy, I think 17 degrees right now. So we're a little bit of a heat wave here in Nebraska from what it's been the last few days. But as we discussed, I signed up for it years ago. Being from here, I knew what I was coming into, but we're getting through it, staying inside more.
Well, hang in there, be strong. It will. We're looking at mid 60s here in Arizona today. So
sounds really nice.
Thoughts and prayers that we can make it through down here. So happy to have you back. And when we were kind of getting this scheduled, I'm like, wait, didn't we just do this? And we'll back and look. It was like 3 years ago. Like, holy crap. Excited to chat with you. A lot of exciting things going on with Happinest Brands, and I want to get to all of that. But you've been in this industry a long time. This is a people business more than anything else. Give us a little scoop on Eric and kind of your journey into this craziness that is franchising.
Well, I always say you don't find franchising, it somehow finds you. And you and I have talked a lot over the years about the attributes of good franchise owners and good franchise development people and operations people. So you hope if you get into this industry in some way, you get on with some good teams and you learn from good mentors. It's such a people business and relationship business. So I kind of fell into it. Now looking back, almost 17 years ago, began working with a large global senior home care franchisor where I live here in Omaha, Nebraska. And we did some great things there. I met a lot of wonderful people and mentors, and some doors open like they typically do when you work hard and do some good things. And that led me to a relationship with the chairman now of Happinest Brands, Scott Frith. And our relationship began. Now I've been here almost 9 years overseeing development for Happinest Brands. And to your point, time goes by really quickly when you're having fun. But I would say, kind of looking back on my career, as a whole, I spent a lot of my years recruiting, working with people on long-term development processes, business development, and recruiting is a kind of a unique skill to learn. You're not recruiting somebody on a call. It takes months typically for these processes. So you have to have some patience and work with people. And I learned that in my early career through some different things, and it really worked well in franchising for me. And pretty blessed to be within this great industry that we're all in here together. So Couldn't be with a better brand and a better group than Happinest Brands, and excited to talk about that today.
No way. And the fact that it's been 9 years, I think there's culture is a very overused word, just not in franchising, just in general with this. But I think one of the things where you can tell there's a really solid culture somewhere is longevity, right? Like if it's, and sometimes it's the people and they just keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing all over the place. But it's also, it may be the organization. Oh, I went there and thought it was good, and like, yikes, get me out of there. And you're like 9 years and just keep rolling along there means there's some really good stuff going on inside Happinest. And tell us a little bit, just there's some brands underneath this umbrella of Happinest. Let's just start there. What are the franchise brands?
Sure. The brands that we have currently, the eggs in the nest, as we like to say here internally, are Lawn Doctor. And I'll kind of touch on each of these a little more deeply. From there, we have a brand called Pest Hunters, Mosquito Hunters, Humbug Holiday Lighting. It's a 3-in-1 service model. We refer to it internally as Hunters Humbug. We have a cleaning service called Eco Maids, which focuses on residential, light commercial, all green, non-toxic cleaning services. And then we have a brand in Canada called Elite Window Cleaning. Does window cleaning, gutter cleaning, house washing, pressure washing, kind of exterior beautification services. And then we have a brand in the US called Sparkle Squad, which is identical to Elite Window Cleaning that is in Canada, but we rebranded it and brought it to the US under the brand name Sparkle Squad. About 2 years ago, officially, we launched it. So in addition to those 5 brands that we have, we've also incubated and birthed internally our own holiday lighting services brands as well. We have some seasonality and windows in our businesses, which I'm sure you're aware of as a consultant. Those right. Things you have to kind of factor in. What do I do during this time of year? We wanted to bring in an opportunity for all of our franchise owners to have an annual revenue opportunity and just maintain consistency and predictability with cash flow. And of course, their customer relationships and, as importantly, their employees, keeping them year round and not having that turnstile. So a lot of effort and work kind of put into building this platform. It really started with Lawn Doctor, and that's something we can maybe touch on a little bit, how this brand anchors the other brands that we have in the portfolio here.
Right. And Lawn Doctor isn't just some random brand or, it's been around a little bit or has some owners. This is a brand that's been around a long time, tons of owners, and has really just in the, there's kind of a little thing with we had Jason Pfeiffer from Entrepreneur Magazine on a couple weeks ago talking about the franchise 500 on the list. And there's even like this whole Hall of Fame thing they have there. Tell us a little bit about Lawn Doctor and just kind of what it is, but some of the accolades and kind of the achievements it's received over the years.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So what Lawn Doctor does specifically is lawn treatment and conditioning. So it's not a grass cutting company, nothing against that type of business model, but it's a high profit margin type of model where you can build a meaningful business. But fertilization, weed control, seeding services, tree shrub care, general pest control, anything for the health and beauty of a property. And the unique thing about Lawn Doctor is it started back in the late 1960s. It's a brand that's been franchising for decades. And when you talk about kind of experience and history and recognition, more recently, we just were announced again as a Hall of Fame member in Entrepreneur Media. They do their franchise 500 every year, and we're the #1 ranked franchise in our category. And one of 3 brands that have been on that 500 list and a Hall of Fame member now, one of 3. The other 2 are McDonald's and Dunkin'. So when you start looking at Lawn Doctor in that category, yeah, it's a service model. It's not the big fancy brick and mortar where you see it driving around maybe as a storefront, but it's a very, very durable model. It's been around a long time. It has hundreds of highly successful franchise owners, many of which are legacy owners. They've taken over from family or maybe were a manager at one point and bought out the previous owner. So why I bring that up is when you look at brands like Pest Hunters and you look at Sparkle Squad and you look at Eco Maids as examples, you really are what you've learned as a franchisor. There's no substitute for experiencing twists and turns, downturns, economic shifts, pandemics, the advent of artificial intelligence. Like we've kind of gone through different iterations as a brand for decades, and we're using a lot of those learnings and the way that we coach to help emerging brands and those leaders and those franchise owners achieve greater success more efficiently and quickly, not stepping on landmines that maybe Lawn Doctor did for many, many years,
Right.
but has evolved and now can provide a platform that other owners can benefit from. And candidly, Tim, Lawn Doctor owners and teams benefit from learnings from other franchise partners that we have in emerging brands. And I'll touch on some of those examples perhaps a bit today, but it's exciting to see what I started with when I joined the company 9 years ago as a solo brand, creating a platform, emerging brand presidents and leaders finding us, wanting to be a part of Happinest and grow with us to get those learnings and help themselves and their brands grow more efficiently and not make the same mistakes that a lot of emerging brands can make. Now, the beauty of emerging brands, as we know, is you got white space. As a candidate, you're going, hey, I can pick what I want as a territory, but I don't want to sacrifice my learnings and my business based on having this franchise or trying to figure out what they're doing. Not to say we're perfect, but we're light years ahead of where most emerging brands would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the category you just mentioned with Lawn Doctor or the company you're in with McDonald's and Dunkin', right? You're like, those pretty good company there to be in from a franchise standpoint. And you think of all the things that have happened that's been around since I think it was 1967, right? For Lawn Doctor, which I love that because it's one of the few franchises that's actually older than me, barely. And it gives them an opportunity to kind of see that growth, but it's not as like, there's nothing sexy about it, but it's also no matter what's going on, there's going to be grass growing, right? And we're going to want it to look good, be healthy, and all of those things. So it's always going to be there. But you talked about how long it's been around, and now you're getting legacy owners, second, and I'm probably sure somewhere even they're like a third generation owner. And so somebody that's out here listening, thinking about franchising, going like, man, I really don't like my job, but I don't know about this business ownership thing and this franchise component. One of the key things is that exit piece, right? So somebody leaves their job, you walk, that's it, right? You don't get to sell it to the next position. You don't get to pass it on to your kids to say, hey, come on in, kid, take over my vice president of blah, blah, blah position. Right. That's not how it goes, but it does with franchise ownership. And you're seeing that, like, yes, the people are exiting, but they're literally, you got people passing this on from generation to generation. What's that been like to kind of see that transition? I'm sure there's a lot of kind of pride in the owners to be able to have that as a family business. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. We have several multi-generation owners that we've seen kids grow up in the business. You know, me in particular, I've been here about 9 years, but we're going back 20, 30 years where some of those original support coaches and leaders that were a part of Lawn Doctor at that time have met with the family members of the original owners, and now those individuals are running the business. So there's a reason people keep them. You know, when you start looking at, just to your point, Lawn Doctor or other brands that we have, there's a recurring element to these businesses. Right. They're membership models. So you start to build this kind of cash cow, this annuity over years and years of doing it. And it makes it really attractive for the next generation to say, hey, mom or dad or whoever it may be, I'd like to step in and kind of take over where we left off. So there's a price you pay, as we know, Tim. You know, when you start a business, there's a lot of lift, and it's been in a couple of years of your life like a lot of people won't, to spend the balance of it like a lot of people can't, and have that asset to pass on to family and that next generation. But you got to be willing to kind of put some things aside, I think, for a while to say, this is the vision, this is a North Star and my why for why I want to do it. But you got to put in the muscle to it, to build it, to make it attractive and have that family want to be involved. So pretty unique scenario here at Lawn Doctor in particular, but we'll see these other brands that we have as well building that same type of legacy in the years to come.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so over the time that not just Lawn Doctor, but now as we get into Happinest, over kind of the umbrella over these other brands, talk about some of the things that you've seen change and some of the enhancements to help your franchise owners as things do. Like, things are changing rapidly, and I think faster and faster every single year. Talk about some of those things that you guys have done. You're like, hey, we used to do this, but now we're making this adjustment, we're this change, this enhancement to help you, the franchise owner. What are some of those things? Yeah,
that's a really great question, Tim. And things have evolved. I think as a candidate looking into franchising today, you can get a lot of information, more than you could years ago. So you start kind of, I think, initially with, what's my investment, threshold here? What does my role look like in this particular model? Who do I surround myself with? What is this industry in general I'm looking at, and where does it kind of fit into? So home services are very durable and resilient. As we know, it's kind of the dirty businesses, the ones that you don't think are super sexy, those are the ones that make money and that you can really differentiate and be unique with. So I think you start with a category in an industry and say, is this a right kind of one for me to be kind of starting my research on? And then from in that industry, what are the brands and the categories within that? So I think when you start there, you go, my God, home services is a $600 billion space. There's a lot of moms and pops in it, not a lot of sophistication in it. I can bring my skills into this model and really become a top provider here in my marketplace. And it's not super expensive to do that because I don't have to necessarily have bricks and mortar or a large team to be able to deliver what I'd like to do. So kind of starting there as a candidate and then looking at the business, how has it evolved over the years? What changes have happened in the business? I look at Happinest and really all of our brands, we've implemented really a new coaching style to start with for our business owners. We call it our home system, Happinest operating model and ecosystem that begins with onboarding and virtual training and preparation for licensing and getting ready to attack the market correctly, setting up your marketing plans. And we have a lot of tools that we're using today for owners to ensure they're staying on track and using more of what we call strategic growth coaching now in our model. Right. So we coach based on revenue band, not just on region. So as an owner of a business, how am I going to be coached? What should I expect here and be delivered? And I realize I have a lot of work to do locally, but we've kind of gone through that whole mapping process to ensure a really great onboarding and training experience for our owners. Now, when you start to think about technology, we have unit level dashboards that show all of our franchise owners their budget, their marketing spend, and where they're investing and how we're getting return for them and what they're doing to help amplify that at the local level. And really using artificial intelligence, found a lot of things that we're doing for a customer experience. We've started to get into AI voice bots for our franchise owners to cut down on some expenses for sales processes, which is working out really well. Technology in vehicles now to ensure efficiency, time on property with our vehicles, and it cuts down on insurance. So we could bring a lot to the table as a franchisor to help our owners with the experience, mapping out the process, being as efficient as they possibly can in their business, and not having to worry about advertising because it's being centrally managed by the corporate location by people that know what they're doing. So that wasn't the case 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's very grassroots. So we have to adopt these kind of changes and evolve as a company, which is why we as the franchisor kind of map this out. So you as a local owner can focus on the blocking and the tackling at the local level, taking care of customers, building a team, doing great in the community and building good referral sources. You can't do that and manage everything else that we're kind of high level touching on here. So what used to be kind of a cottage home services industry has now evolved. And if you're not meeting the customer where they're at and leveraging tools and technology to make it as efficient for them to get to you, you're a dinosaur and it's going to really impact your ability to grow.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, we've all gotten lazy, right? And so I want what I want, when I want, how I want it, and the way I want it. And like, give me a participation trophy along the way. And so the some of those things we talk about the support, particularly from a marketing standpoint, and you kind of touched on it, but I want to come back to, yes, the franchisor is helping, not doing everything, but you're it's a pretty heavy lift of things that you are helping drive customers to that owner's business. But there is the local component, right? I'm not the owner. I'm going to kick my feet up and go, yeah, well, Eric says he's going to get me a bunch of leads. This will be fine. I'll just wait and take it from there. Talk about some of those things in the community that you're seeing those owners doing to help also grow the business besides the traditional marketing efforts.
Sure. And I always tell candidates when we work with them, this is a team sport. It's a two-way street, right? Marketing is not a linear process. If you're not today using Google Maps and Meta and having paid search and display and LSAs and retargeting, you're going to have a really tough time being relevant. You need a really good company that can efficiently manage that exposure digitally because it does create interest. It does drive demand. It causes clicks and people see you more on their devices, on their computer, on their phones. And then when it comes down to what we call ground game, those elements are localized, things that we can't centralize. We can manage that and do it really well for an owner, but owners in their marketplaces are building relationships with their customers, and they're doing that in many ways. we've gotten very deep into commercial account development at Happinest over the last several years, right? So you have owners that are calling on commercial accounts. You're doing local home shows. You're doing farmers markets. We want to get an owner involved in a B&I group and in their chamber and network with realtors and property managers and HOA directors. These are people that are going to be in the market referring to you, speaking well of you. You're getting to know other leaders in the community, and there are synergies you can create with that. So you got to care for everything. You got to have SEO, a nice website, good links to drive people to your offering, promotions that you're running centrally for your franchise owners to get that lift going, but then have a franchisee and their local team really own their backyard with that community development, because it goes both ways. People see lawn signs and door hangers, and they go to our website and it shows up as maybe an Instagram lead or a pay-per-click lead, but it started with something that they saw at that local level. So you want to create this wall of sound, as we call it, in a community. And there's different ways to do that cost efficiently when you're leveraging a local owner's team and their efforts. And they're coached on where and when and how in the talk track, but they have to bring that energy and say, look, I almost have to just kind of forget about the centralization. I know it's happening. I'm seeing reports on it. I see the leads I'm getting from that and the conversions. I have to own my backyard and just assume I'm a local business owner, a small owner. I have to get my brand out there in different ways too. You don't want to bring in an owner who thinks, oh, to your point earlier, this is all done. I just have to sit back and kind of watch the leads come in and call every now and again. That would be setting someone up with the wrong expectation.
Yes. Yes, you do need to pay attention to it. And yes, you do need to pick up the phone, but all of those other things. And I think because there's not just one avenue for like, oh, you do this and you get leads. It's all of those. And I've seen things anywhere from like 8 to 15 different touch points where people have to see you before they become a customer. One thing in home service that comes up a lot, and I just saw a lawn doctor vehicle not too long ago at our house in Tampa, and people don't realize the power of the wrapped vehicle, and just or the lawn sign that is there after the job is done, and again, talk a little bit like about what the importance of that. I don't think people ever even comprehend like, oh, I got to make even get a vehicle and wrapping it. What? Like there's several reasons why, but what are some of the things where you've seen that really effective for your brands?
Sure. I mean, it's a mobile billboard on wheels. All of our vehicles are outfitted for franchise owners and wrapped, and we don't put a lot of clutter on the vehicles besides the brand and a very kind of small section for the services that we provide. We want people to see it driving around. If you got one or two, people think you got 10 or 20 of them driving around. It's not just for servicing, right? We stage those vehicles in the marketplace when they're not servicing in a given time period to draw eyeballs to it. And we do what we call parking waves. All of our brands have mascots, as you know, Tim, right? So we bring this very kind of Disney-like feel to our business model where owners know, hey, people are going to see me in different ways. The rule of sevens, whether it's 8, 12, 15 touch points, I've heard many different touch points. It's probably increased now, but you got to put yourself out there and be found in different ways, and not necessarily ways that cost money. You know, that's the deal. It's like you want to get as much out of the infrastructure you have with parking and parking waves and van movement and local events that don't cost much, but it's bringing eyeballs and exposure amplified by the media that we run. You start to have people going, where did these folks come from? I see them everywhere. And you start to get entrenched in some neighborhoods, and they see vans coming through, and then they see signs, and then they see an ad pop up, and they go, wow, these guys are everywhere. They're in my neighborhood. I should probably give them a call for X, Y, Z service. So you have to look at your business that way. Everything you do every day is branding yourself and branding your company and marketing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even just, and for anybody that's visually watching this, and Eric's, it's a little harder to see on the camera up there, but Eric's wearing a Happinest shirt. Like as owners, like look, you got to leave the house. And when you do wear a shirt, you got to kind of wear one of those, right? Like have it logoed up. And I'm a horrible example today because apparently I work for Roebuck here on my hoodie. But, and speaking of which, if they'd like to sponsor the show, we're more than happy to help them. But like, and all the time that I travel and everything, like I've got something, FranCoach, Franchising 101 podcast, whatever. You just never know when somebody's going to ask you about it. And all you did was wear a shirt, right? That you have to be wearing a shirt anyways. Just being that kind of like be proud of if you're not proud of your business, why the hell are you owning it, right? And so
what if your 9-to-5 job didn't last forever? What if there was a better way to create professional success, your way, without fear of layoffs or downsizing? What if I told you that it's all possible through franchise ownership? Franchise ownership gives you a proven playbook to execute, so you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. But with thousands of franchises out there, how do you know which is the best one for you? That's where FranCoach comes in. FranCoach will help build out your ideal business model based on your talents, skills, and core values. Then use our proprietary knowledge of the franchises to bring curated options based on what you want, and then guide you through the vetting process until we find your best match. Individualized, personalized, and 100% free to you. Ready to control your future? Scan the QR code or visit francoach.net and let FranCoach help create your better tomorrow.
I want to pivot a little bit to with a couple of other brands, and there's been some evolution over the years with, we started out with Mosquito Hunters, and now we've kind of had some evolution with that to, again, help enhance the owners and their business potential. Talk about how those changes kind of came about and what that business model looks like now.
Sure. It's a great question. When you look back at the very beginning stages, when we acquired Mosquito Hunters back in 2018, it was, at a stage where that industry was still, I would say, evolving a bit, but a lot of players got into it. Yeah, it's a discrete customer, relatively speaking. Mosquito control is a needed service, tick and flea abatement services. People buy them. I'm a customer myself. I value it very much so. But there's others that get into it because there's not a huge barrier to entry in a service just like that. So being Happinest Brands, having the leadership we have and understanding kind of where the puck was going, we took an aggressive step back and said, hey, we want to continue to offer these services because there's a market for it. Absolutely. But we want to expand that reach and help our owners generate more revenue and get into some different doors. And that started with getting into pest control, perimeter pest control, rodent control. And then it started to move into commercial, excluding services and restaurants and other businesses that everybody needs pest control services. And it's a requirement in many cases. So we were leaving a lot on the table. We've already got all these customers and branding out there. So we had to be very careful in how we did it, but we've now massaged into pest hunters, Mosquito Hunters. And then from there, we evolved into the holiday lighting component as well for the reasons we touched on earlier. So we took, a discrete service that, is a good industry and, valued at $2 billion. And we've now 15x up to close to $30 billion revenue opportunity with the pest control, which is about a $25 billion space, and holiday lighting, which is right now about $4 billion valued at. Yeah. So both of these industries, one's pretty mature, but ripe for opportunity for a local player to come in, like a Pest Hunters. A lot of people don't want to deal with the bigger box players, as we know. Name names on your podcast, but having that local touch and now that holiday lighting component really opens up those doors even wider at a very high margin. So we want to help owners build revenue and have different opportunities for them to be able to do that, not just say, well, you got 7 months out of the year to do that. That's where many of our competitors and other players are at. We don't want to be that. So we're attracting a different avatar as a franchise owner. This is more inclusive, and you got to be an owner operator, and you got to start building a team and be more aggressive with your approach on commercial account marketing. And obviously you have a really big opportunity when you get into the fall to amplify your holiday lighting opportunities and build a additional customer base there, including keeping some of your existing customers from pest control on holiday lighting as well. So that was the real impetus for us: more revenue opportunities, keeping employees long-term and yearly, and not having that unpredictability that can be very hard to kind of work through as a small business owner. If you got several months out of the year where, it kind of goes dormant, we don't have that issue anymore.
Yeah. And there are times that seasonality, there are owners in northern states that they cram so much business in the 7-8 months, whatever, that they're happy with it slowing down, right? But you're now giving them the opportunity to not have to be happy with that. But change sometimes is it's this dirty 4-letter word. How was that received by your OG Mosquito Hunters owners? And now all of a sudden, now we're expanding this with pest. We've got the opportunity for holiday lighting. How was that received by your owners when that came around?
It's a very fair question, Tim, and I'll give you a very candid answer. Not well by everyone. When you look at franchising, you come into a system with an expectation of, hey, this is what the business model is. This is what I'm trained on and what I'm prepared to do, and I've kind of set myself up for this. And it was no slight on some of those original owners that had come on board, but some said, hey, I kind of want to just be a Mosquito guy, and that's kind of what I signed up for with my son. It's going to help me out and kind of have a bit of a side hustle mentality. There are business models for that. Absolutely. Right. But we went to every single owner and said, here's where we're going toward, and here's why we'd like to have you on board with that. And some of our owners absolutely said, heck yes. Frankly speaking, the pest control and the holiday lighting was driven by feedback from our franchise owners. And it's on us as a franchisor to take those ideas and bring them to life and execute. And we've done that and helped immensely with the model. But some of those original OGs, as you said, we helped a few of them sell their businesses and kind of move on. And others kind of said, I want to do this and get on board. And we had to go through some retraining with them. So that changed who we were going after. So the talk track and all the things that we go through with a candidate from day one now begin with our 3-in-1 model on Hunter's Humbug. And this is what you're going to do. And we found, as we expected, we're attracting a really high caliber of candidate now that we have this year-round opportunity. To your point, some don't want it, and that's okay.
Right.
We aren't for you then. If you want to be a bigger business and build year-round than we are, let's talk about home service and how we fit into it and where we can go with this.
Well, and you brought up what I was going to ask next was, how did the thought of expanding into the pest and the holiday lighting come about? And then, because I think it's great that there was, like, franchise owners, like, let's be honest, probably nobody understands the business better than them. They're out there doing it, and that they have the ability to communicate to the franchisor. And you guys are hearing that instead of going, no, we're the franchisor, do as you're told. You're listening to that, collaborating, and finding out a way to help them improve, which again goes back to kind of that overall culture within Happinest is, how do we actually help our franchise owners reach the success they want? So I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's super cool that you're listening to that feedback, and then you're not going to do everything that they suggest, but when you hear it enough, like, there's some great ideas. What's the McDonald's story? Is it's the Egg McMuffin, right?
McMuffin.
Right. Was a franchise owner, and they're like, because there wasn't like a breakfast genre back then, and then now it's like, I don't know, that's a $1 industry of just fast food breakfast because they listened to a franchise owner. So kudos to you guys for that. So I'll
say this, Tim, to me, the most undervalued aspect of franchising, when you look at franchising, first and foremost, and determine, is this the right time for me, the right investment, the right platform, the right company, industry, all those things. You start to talk to franchise owners. Validation is a significant part of any franchisee candidate's experience. I want to hear from others that did this before me and see how they feel, how their businesses are performing, and what are you doing well, where are you falling short, how do you feel about the value of the support from your franchisor, but you're also getting a feel for what the fraternity is like. Who are the people in this business? Do they work with each other? Do they communicate with each other? We've really, I think, as a company, done a good job here of bringing owners together and creating this atmosphere where there's open sharing and ideas, not just amongst brands, but across Happinest. We brought together groups of owners from other brands. We have our first conference, all brand new emerging brand conference coming up in March called Nest Fest, for brands from owners from Sparkle Squad and Pest Hunters and Eco Maids and Elite Window will be there. Okay. And that's really cool to bring ideas together. But that's so important, is what is it like in this community I'm looking at? Because you're becoming a part of a community of other like-minded people that want to see you do well. And, you want them to do well, because that makes everybody more valuable. Rising tides raise all boats. So I just want to make sure people understand that it's kind of the best of both worlds in my view, Tim. Like, it's not corporate America. You don't have a boss, but you're in business for yourself and not by yourself. You're not on this island. Yeah. You've got others to turn to and learn from. And there's a ton of value in that for a new business owner. Teach me what worked for you and what didn't. I don't want to step on those landmines. I want to get there faster. And you've got to set the stage for that.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes I'll tell our clients, when they start talking to owners in that validation process, is you're going to hear them at some point. And even if you're like, hey, would you do this all over again type of thing, they're almost always going, yes, but I would do this differently. And they're usually kind of ratting themselves out, some mistake. Like, pay attention and listen to that. But I think in general in franchising, we don't talk enough about the franchise owners in any system, how valuable that relationship can be back and forth, right? And so, because again, nobody knows it better than you and I are the owner in the same franchise, and we're in totally different parts of the country. It doesn't matter. We're still in the same family, the same system. We're living the same day in a life from this, and that you guys are really creating those channels for the owners to communicate is fantastic. I love that. Tell us really quickly a little bit about Sparkle Squad, or I guess Elite Window for our 2 Canadian listeners to the podcast. But talk a little bit about Sparkle Squad, what this is.
Sparkle Squad was born with the vision of Chris Stonas, who began Elite Window Cleaning in Kingston, Canada, back in 2000 and I believe 11 timeframe. And Chris built an amazing brand and added some locations in Canada as he started to try his hand at franchise. And like a lot of founders and pioneers, they figure out franchising is a whole different animal. And Chris really wanted to come to the United States and build his brand all over North America. So without going too detailed, the relationship started with our chairman, Scott Frith, and that relationship began as a mentor-mentee relationship and blossomed into an acquisition. We wanted to rebrand it here. We actually secured the domain name Sparkle Squad many years ago, knowing we wanted a window cleaning, gutter cleaning, house washing, pressure washing type concept here in the US, but we were not subject matter experts on that industry. We needed to find that individual, and that was Chris Stonas. And Chris has been an amazing leader for Elite and for Sparkle Squad. And we started franchising Sparkle Squad about 2 years ago in the United States. We've grown now to over 100 locations. Thoughtful growth. We're doing it the right way. At Happinest, we're very much about 1-2 territories to start. Yes. And that's a subject we can touch on if you want to for your listeners. There's a whole different dynamic out there in franchising of what's your growth strategy. We want to go deep before we go too wide, and we can kind of put a pin in that for a moment. But going back
you're the ones in Nebraska doing it the right way. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tim. That means a lot to me.
I will say that you can't. So no, and again, this goes back to that emerging thing. Is like there's the white space, so people can get excited about it. But come back. Like I do really want to touch on that. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but why is that so important for owners? They're like, no, like Eric, really, I want like all of Phoenix. I don't want just 2 territories here. I want all 12 or whatever it might be. What do you kind of like, almost like preventing themselves from making a mistake that they don't realize? Talk a little bit about that importance.
Biting off more than you can chew too early is a recipe for disaster, Tim. I've just been around too long to see it, especially in route-based service models where you're going to a residential or commercial customer on a somewhat frequent basis or coming back time and time again for different services. Density and efficiency equate to profitability in these businesses. When you start looking at 3, 4, 5, 6 areas and locking up areas, and we'll start with this one, and over the next 3, 4, 5 years, we'll get these going. That's wishful thinking. Right. It's smarter in our years, and keep in mind, going back to 60 years of doing a route-based recurring service model, doing it quite well. Number 1 Hall of Famer, like we've learned a lot from that, and it applies to other businesses we have as well. So you want to make sure an owner doesn't get too wide, too fast. Now we have plans where you can expand and do deposits and build your reach, but we want to see how it goes. I think it's fair to say openly here for a listener, for a franchisee, as us a franchisor, let's see how it looks in these maybe 1 or 2 contiguous areas. Let's build some density. Let's get you confident before we get too far ahead of our skis. You don't want someone pouring too much into it up front and not having enough capital to invest and grow their areas that they're focused on to start with. But people grow in a lot of ways, Tim, as you know. Resales, acquisitions, once you're in a system, things start to happen. You meet people and someone's retiring out or moving on, and you add that area. Good things happen to good people when they get the model down right, set the foundation the right way, and not get over their skis too far and just can never recover.
No, absolutely. And I think there's times where, like, oh, I got these big growth plans and I want all this stuff. And you may get into, even just 1 territory, let alone 2. And all of a sudden you realize you're like, no, I'm good. This is great. This is exactly what I want. Time I'm spending, money I'm making. And then I think, especially with service brands, is there's no physical ceiling, right? So if you're sitting there and you get 1%, 2% of the market share, which most brands, it's not much more than that, and you've got a pretty good living, yeah, I'll go ahead and open up another territory, but why don't I just get to 3%, right? Like, we're not talking about getting to 97%. We're just 3. And so, and all in that same place, because you're swarming them with truck after truck. And you're going to get to the point where you feel like you're everywhere. Do I want one house in every single subdivision in all of Phoenix, or do I want 6 in this one subdivision because of that? So again, it's just, I appreciate greatly the fact that you are getting people to kind of start that way. Doesn't mean they can't expand long term. And I would assume within Happinest, and I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to, but do we have owners that own multiple brands within there?
It's something that we are looking at very closely, and I will say it's a part of our recipe in the future here. It hasn't really come to fruition at this point. I think you can appreciate this yourself as a consultant. You don't want to take a really good owner and all of a sudden have a very average owner who now has 2 or 3 businesses, whether they be Happinest Brands or other ones. So still pretty early in our strategy here as a company, but we have owners that are interested. We've had conversations with ones that meet the criteria. Like, it wouldn't just be anyone who says, hey, I want to do 2 brands now. You have to have the right resources and local infrastructure, kind of a mini Happinest in your market with enough team members and resources to be able to do that correctly. But we hope to see that more so in the future, because you build a customer base, and now I'm bringing in a new widget. I have a new service, and you know me, you trust me, you like me. It's a unique owner that can be what I call a mumbo, the multi-unit, multi-brand operator. Like, those don't grow on trees. There's some high-level folks we have that are going to be a fit for that, and for some that may desire but not quite ready. We're not going to put people in harm's way. And
you're new, like the Sparkle Squad owners and Eco Maids, they've not been around long enough to do that. If anything, it might be like a lawn doctor owner. It's like, I've been doing this a while. I'm kind of on autopilot, like from that perspective. Are you seeing good communication in a market where you've got multiple brands represented? How are they communicating back and forth?
Absolutely, we are. There's a lot of collaboration. Owners, when they come on board and they get into a new market, they're going to meet their sister brand owners and get to know them and start to create some opportunities to grow together and share in expenses for probably shows. And I even know some have shared some salespeople on their staffs and have referred back and forth to each other. We're more formalizing that process right now at Happinest, to where I see a point we all do it in the near future where there's leap behinds and a call to action. Hey, you're working with our brand here. We also have a brand that does this. Same great experience, great customer follow-up. We'd love to give you a discount. Those are things that we're working through as a brand. But to do that really efficiently, Tim, you have to have a good distribution. You have to have brands in different MSAs and be able to kind of double down, because everyone has a brand marketing budget. We're pouring those into areas, so it's driving impressions. And when you start having some low cost or 0 cost acquisitions from referrals from sister brands, that makes a really big difference for a franchise owner. So building that infrastructure as we speak to get to that stage. But currently, it's a bit more organic as owners get to know one another and start to kind of share ideas and customers. And it's starting to work out really well.
Because you're going to have, as an owner, you're going to have customers that are happy with you. And then, because it's so hard to find somebody that's trusted, right? So I'm like, hey, I know you're making my lawn look great. My house is a mess. Do you know anybody? Right. And again, if there's an Eco Maids there, they're going to go, yes. Right. So again, as that grows, I think that's going to continue to be even more impactful for your owners. Eric, last thing I want to throw at you is, and I'll let you go, and I thank you so much for your time, is you've been in the industry a long time, lots of different owners and brands coming in and out. You got somebody sitting out there, they're watching this, they're listening to this, trying to figure out kind of like that next step or a call to action. What's maybe a piece of advice you would give somebody out there trying to determine is franchising, whether it's Happinest or not, is franchising right for them? What would you share with them?
It's a really good question, Tim, because I will say this very openly. For most people, it's probably not right to be a business owner. And I just say that very openly. Anytime I start talking to someone, we all as human beings have an idea in our mind, and we see certain things and we create kind of visions in our own brain. But until you really flesh it out and take stock of where am I at in my life right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have young kids? Do I have a challenging relationship right now at home? Am I stressed to the gills? Do I have a sick mom? A lot of stuff going on in my life. Is my job on the rocks here? You got to stop and think for a moment. Is this the right time to embark on this journey? Not just to start researching, but as you get more and more serious, you got to have the decks of life pretty clear getting into business. And if you can determine that, and you have the capital and the resources, and good franchisors are going to be very open and clear. This is what it takes, not just to get in, but working capital to keep funding this until you start to cash flow. And this isn't a part-time focus. Anything worth having, you got to put your heart and soul into it. So I think really taking stock of where you're at in life and what expenses you have, and can you live for maybe a couple of years a little leaner while you're ramping up revenue? I always tell people, like, you do the same thing, Tim. Like, I always picture a business owner at the end of the table. There's this beautiful meal on the table, a Thanksgiving meal, and everyone's around eating that meal. As the owner, you're at the end of that table, and what kind of gets down there, what's left over is yours. Now, the bigger you get, the more revenue you generate, the bigger that meal is. And it's wonderful, but you got to take some time to be able to get there, because everyone else has to eat that you're feeding on your team before you can kind of get there. So starting there, and to me, attribute-wise, Tim, there's a lot of things I could share here, but you need to be coachable. Everybody we bring in here, and any good franchisor, is smart. They have the right capital to do this. They have shown the drive to us through a 2 or 3 month process. So we're assessing you, you're assessing us, but you got to check that ego at the door and learn a business and learn from others and kind of say, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader here. I want to learn this from the ground up and build it the right way. You have to be a giver. I think good franchise owners, it's not about just me. It's about we as a collective whole. I want to be a good teammate, a good ambassador, a good person in this system, and help others, and also kind of that giver's gain mentality. And finally, you need to have a growth mindset, especially here at Happinest Brands, where we're not looking for part-timers or someone looking for a side hustle. You may have a job. You might have some flexibility. You might have a spouse that's really equally interested in building a family business, or a son or a daughter or a partner. Those are all discussions we want to have. I'm not insinuating everybody's like, okay, W-2 gone, let's go, I'll figure this out. That might not be your right recipe, but you got to look at the surrounding and say, what do I have in my orbit? Who can I divide and conquer with? Do I have some flexibility and enough time to really build this the right way to get where I want with the business, right? So many people want to leave corporate, leave those chains and have that business, but it's getting to that kind of next stage in life. How do I bridge that gap for the next couple of years while I'm learning this, first of all, how to be an owner, learning this model, learning how to build a team, learning from others. I have to have some lifestyle income coming in, whether that's from my wife or other resources or a flexible job. Things can be done, Tim. Everybody figures this out that comes in with the right mindset, but I think it comes down to that growth mindset. Don't come into this thinking this is something on the side. We want 7-figure businesses. We want you to build wealth and have an asset you can monetize and someday pass on to the next generation in your family, or sell and make a return on that. That's not going to happen if this is always number 2 or 3 on your list and the W-2 is tugging you away. That business isn't going to grow. Yeah.
And I love the coachability piece is a weird piece of advice I give people when they sign franchise agreements. Is for the next few months, I need you to be dumb. I know you're smart. I know you've been successful. Like, turn it off and just yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Right? Like, put your head down and do what they say. There's a reason you have just invested in this franchise, because you trust the people in the system. Don't try to be smarter than it right away. And you and I have both seen owners that have struggled with that a little bit, and then hopefully come back around. But the faster to start are going to be people that put their head down and do what the heck they're told. And again, it's not your boss, but you're trusting, hey, these are the best practices. Come in and adopt those, and then put forth the effort towards it. So I love
trust is such a good word to use, Tim. It really is. And I know trust takes time. And, you start talking to franchisors and meeting people and hearing, about the owners and the system, and you're trying to figure this whole thing out. If a franchisor isn't being really open with you and candid, it's probably not the franchisor you want to deal with. If it's all roses and rainbows and unicorns and the reviews and the discussions and, oh, I got on a recorded call and that was amazing. Like, you got to peel into these things and talk to people, explore it, meet franchise owners, understand what works and what doesn't, what the franchisor does in response. We all have challenges. No one's perfect out there. No one's got this model that no one knows about. It's like, oh my God, everyone should do this. This is the easiest thing and you make a lot of money. Anything worth having is going to take a lot of effort. And that's just the reality of it. So we talk that way with our candidates. Not to scare people off. We want to bring in good owners that want to be successful and build with us, but not with the wrong understanding of what this takes to be a performer here. And that's what we commit to with the candidate.
Yeah, you'd rather scare them off than lie to them to become an owner and then be miserable. And then everybody's miserable down the road. So awesome, Eric. Thank you so much for your time, your insights, and really just everything you guys continue to do at Happinest. Love every bit of it, and thanks for joining us today.
Tim, it's my pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to step in here and just share some thoughts. I hope it helps someone. And we love to work with good candidates that want to build something beyond just themselves. And if this is something you've heard and you say Happinest or Lawn Doctor or Pest Hunters or Sparkle Squad or whatever it may be, I'd like to learn more about that. Reach out to us. We'll have a very open conversation, tell you what it kind of looks like from the process standpoint, and then we'll get you behind the curtain and start diving in together and talking about these things at a much deeper level. So I really appreciate you, what you do for the industry, and your amazing team. Thank you for the opportunity, my friend.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Eric.
Take care, Tim.
Hey, thanks again for tuning into the Franchising 101 podcast brought to you by FranCoach. I hope these episodes continue to educate you on the amazing possibilities that can be achieved through franchise ownership. In between podcast episodes, if you still want to learn more about franchising and the ways in which FranCoach can help, there are a few places for you to check out. First, tune in to the Franchising 360 show. It is the only nationally syndicated television show about franchising hosted by me and Danielle Wright. Our TV show airs every Friday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Biz TV. Next, check out the FranCoach YouTube channel, which is FranCoach for You. You can find tons of franchise-specific content there. Plus, you can catch past episodes of the Franchising 360 show. If you like to read, we encourage you to check out our book, Becoming a Franchise Owner. You'll never guess what it's about. And finally, when you're ready to take that first personalized step and explore the franchise industry further, please reach out to our amazing team at FranCoach. You can click the QR code or find us at francoach.net. There is never any fee for our service, so let us help you create your better tomorrow.